One of the first times I ever performed in front of a big group of people was at my kindergarten graduation. I did, like, a Michael Jackson impersonation as, like, a 5-year-old. I had the suit and blazer, the glove and the fedora, and I just performed a whole Michael Jackson song. I'm sure it was Smooth Criminal. I think for me I was in kindergarten, so I was very young, and my teacher acknowledged that I was very dyslexic when it came to reading and writing and processing that information. I learned that you should feel when writing, not like Lord Byron on a mountain top, but like child stringing beads in kindergarten, happy, absorbed and quietly putting one bead on after another. Many Israelis are educating their kids in a very nationalist, powerful identity, since kindergarten, and the Arabs as well. Let's teach kids, at the kindergarten level, what the contributions of people of color were to building the United States of America. When Desperate Housewives ends, I think my girls will be about the kindergarten age. I will be so happy to be there for them through that huge transition. I had a great education. From kindergarten to John Dewey High School in Coney Island, I am public school educated. I was a very, very serious child. I was valedictorian of my kindergarten and 8th grade class. If you haven't heard my story, my mom is full Korean, and my dad is Caucasian. Kids in kindergarten would make fun of me for being Asian. And when you're that age, you don't know really how to process that. The way you take that is, who I am isn't good enough. The only picture I have of my childhood is the picture of me in kindergarten. I have this expression on my face, it's not a smile, it's not a frown. I swear to you, that's the girl who wakes up in the morning and who looks around her house and her life saying, I cannot believe how God has blessed me. In kindergarten, we'd tell stories with our toys. We'd set a timer for 2 hours because we knew that was how long a movie was. I'd love to go back and teach primary school. I used to teach 4th grade and 5th grade. I'd love to spend several years teaching kindergarten or maybe 3rd grade. Nature was my kindergarten. When I was in kindergarten, I had one line in a little play. I said, I am Patrick Potato and this is my cousin, Mrs. Tomato, and I heard laughter. I wanted to be an actress from that moment on. People lived in the same apartments for years. You'd meet a group of kids in kindergarten, and you'd still be with them in high school. No one ever left the neighborhood. I was coming home from kindergarten. Well, they told me it was kindergarten. I found out later I had been working in a factory for 10 years. It's good for a kid to know how to make gloves. Head Start is designed to ensure that all children, regardless of their family's income, race, or ethnic background, are able to enter kindergarten ready to learn. But people that are worried about unborn babies are the same ones that vote against kindergarten programs in Indiana or school lunch funds out of the federal government. I want to clear up a few myths about myself. People have written that I was a kindergarten teacher and a former Miss Texas, and neither is true. We all learned in kindergarten that the beginning is a very good place to start. As we have this debate on illegal immigration and illegal entry into this country, let's begin at the very beginning by sealing the borders to this great nation. I was up late last night yapping about the elections on CNN and up early this morning doing the same thing in my daughter's kindergarten class. We've been trained since kindergarten, be nice, be kind, share, put on a smile. So we're conditioned to squash our natural selfish instincts, and that's the right thing for society. I always was a weird child. My mother told me the story that, in kindergarten, would come home and tell her about this weird kid in my class who drew only with black crayons and didn't speak to other kids. I talked about it so much that my mother brought it up with the teacher, who said, "What? That's your son?" I'm like the kid in kindergarten, I really do send Valentines to everyone. One of my first memories is marching with my mom. I was in kindergarten with the Catholic ladies when Martin Luther King Jr. got shot. We wore the black armbands and marched downtown. Polls that have been taken by kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade teachers indicate that 30% of the kids have been deprived in some way so that they are physically unable to keep up with the class. I had always wanted to be an actress. I went to summer theater camp from kindergarten on up until high school, and always had the leads in all the plays, even though they were at the YMCA, but it was something I always wanted to do. I was actually supposed to be a basketball player, not an actress. My parents had me playing basketball on competitive teams when I was in kindergarten. Even though my heart belongs to the arts, I'm a tomboy at heart, too. In a spiral galaxy, the ratio of dark to light matter is about a factor of 10. That's probably a good number for the ratio of our ignorance to knowledge. We're out of kindergarten, but only in about 3rd grade. When I was a little kid we moved to Tulsa, then to St. Louis and, by the time I was in kindergarten, we lived in Springfield, Missouri. There I basically grew up. The universe is one great kindergarten for man. Everything that exists has brought with it its own peculiar lesson. I've wanted to perform my entire life. I found a paper I wrote in kindergarten class about what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wrote, a famous singer. In kindergarten that used to be my job, to tell them fairy tales. I liked Hans Christian Andersen, and the Grimm fairy tales, all the classic fairy tales. When the boys and girls would line up separately in kindergarten, I'd find myself longing to be in the other line. My parents had very high expectations. They expected me to get straight A's from the time I was in kindergarten. My parents homeschooled my sister and me for many years. Why? Because the local school insisted that I, being 3, should go to preschool, and my sister, being 5, should go to kindergarten. The problem? You learn your alphabet in preschool, and I was already reading chapter books. Experts tell us that 90% of all brain development occurs by the age of 5. If we don't begin thinking about education in the early years, our children are at risk of falling behind by the time they start kindergarten. I used to diet all the time as a kid. I started dieting in, kindergarten. I don't recommend it, but I also don't judge people who want to do things with their body. If you have a kid who goes to kindergarten and doesn't know what a circle is, doesn't know what red and green are, and doesn't know what right and left are, by the time he learns those things, the rest of the class is far ahead of him. Our daughters were coming of age during a rising consciousness about gender equality. Throughout their school years, from kindergarten through graduate school, 1972 to 1992, women were starting to take their places in areas traditionally reserved mostly for men. I was never a good student. I had to be dragged into kindergarten. It was hard to sit and listen to somebody talk. I wanted to be out, educated by experience and adventure, and I didn't know how to express that. My husband and I have known each other since kindergarten. I had a crush on him in school, but we never dated. Then we saw each other again after high school, and there was something instantly familiar about him. I'm a very shy person and was very closed off, but he allowed me to be myself, and there's a safety in that. After church on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, my family would go chop down our Christmas tree. Once it was home and placed in its stand, Mom and I would painstakingly decorate our tree. It took hours to place the tinsel, string the lights, find the perfect spot for my favorite macaroni and felt ornaments from kindergarten. I've always traveled with a picture of my daughter from 1989, her kindergarten school picture, that has, "I love you, Daddy," written on it. She's always made fun of me because I never changed that picture out. It's like my resistance to her getting older. It was the first thing she'd ever written to me and it means the world to me. I knew more about produce from the sea than any of my schoolmates, and my reports in school, from kindergarten on, amused and shocked my classmates and teachers. I told them how we ate with chopsticks, had rice and seaweed for breakfast, raw fish, octopus, and sea urchin eggs for supper, and cakes made from sharks. I went through 7th grade in private school. I went to private school from kindergarten to 7th grade. Once I accomplish one thing and I'm satisfied, I try something else. I may be 50 and doing something totally outside of music and acting. Maybe I'll become a kindergarten teacher. I love kids, so 2 things that I have thought about are being a pediatrician or a kindergarten teacher. I would advise my young colleagues, the composers of symphonies, to drop in sometimes at the kindergarten, too. It is there that it is decided whether there will be anybody to understand their works in 20 years' time. I was born and raised in California and benefited from California's excellent public schools, from kindergarten through medical school. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.